Took a little vacation. Now we jumping right back into it, man.
My name is Sergeant Jerry. Stuck in a never-ending.
So trying to wait till them sirens go by. You know it's Saturday night, Chicago, so probably a lot of shit going on right now. But we doing the Delphi murders today. It's crazy because when the story came out, I didn't think they was gonna ever find nobody that actually did this shit, man. But they actually found the dude that did it. So I'm trying to see like what the whole rundown is. Was he a neighbor? Was he? Who was he? Damn, these sirens loud as hell.
I'd like to thank you all for being here. And
Let me pause it for a second. Something going on out there. That's why I'm in here. Let's get it started.
thank the Delphi United Methodist Church for allowing us to use their facility. This morning, we're going to provide an update on the investigation into the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. Before we get started, I'm going to introduce to you our speakers, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter, the Carroll County Sheriff, Tobe Lesenby, and the Carroll County Prosecutor, Nick McClelland. I'd like to remind everyone that this continues to be an active and ongoing investigation. At the conclusion of this press conference, we are going to answer a limited amount of questions out of respect to the investigation and the process that will follow today. We will not discuss evidence that is related to this investigation. On behalf of the Delphi Double Homicide Task Force, thank you all for your continued support. I would now like to introduce to you our first speaker, Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter. Give me just a second here. Seldom do I have prepared remarks, but today is different because I do not want there to be any confusion or ambiguity with what I will say. Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation. First, I'd like to speak directly to Anna, Mike, Becky, Kelsey, your extended families, along with the entire Delphi community that certainly has grown and now includes our nation and even many countries around the world. I am proud to report to you that today, actually last Friday, was the day, and an arrest has been made. Thanks to literally hundreds of media outlets that have been steadfast in reporting and keeping the memories of Abby and Libby front and center. Many of you in the room have developed relationships with me personally, and I always have a personal perspective, and today's no different. But from a very personal perspective, you all have provided inspiration and support, even while oftentimes frustrated with us and me. You continue to encourage the efforts, and you too believe that one day we would all be here participating and sharing this news.
to the entire law enforcement community, which includes all local, state, and federal agencies, which are far too many to specifically mention today, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to continue a very methodical and committed approach to ensure that if any other person had any involvement in these murders in any way, that person or persons will be held accountable. Since the murders of Abby and Libby, 2,086 days ago, the daily investigative team has worked tirelessly and is certainly worthy of mention today. Specifically, Sheriff Linsonby, the Sheriff of Carroll County, Detectives Tony Liggett, Detective retired Kevin Hammond, former Delphi chief and now the prosecutor's investigator Steve Mullins, State Police First Sergeant Jerry Holman, Detectives Jay Harper, Dave Vito, and Brian Harshman, along with members of the United States Marshal Service, specifically Agent Jeremy Clinton and Agent Bill Colfers. With them today is Dan McClain, the U.S. Marshal, appointed U.S. Marshal. Our state police analyst, our scientist from many different disciplines within our laboratory division, Mrs. Kathy Shank, for your incredible dedication to detail and to so many others that I know I've missed. I really believe that Abby and Libby would be proud of you for standing strong, even in the face of immense pressure and perpetual criticism. Some of these individuals have postponed retirement, passed on promotional opportunity, have dedicated personal time away from their families, given up nights, weekends, and holidays, all while in the pursuit of accountability for Abby and Libby. I know that today's announcement will not diminish your resolve, and I hope you have found just a bit of peace in this most complicated world. This is really important. While I know you are all expecting final details today concerning this arrest, today is not that day. Today is not that day. This investigation is far from complete, and we will not jeopardize its integrity by releasing or discussing documents or information before the appropriate time. Prosecutor Nick McClellan, of course, will share additional information about what we can and cannot say, and also explain to you why the probable cause affidavit is temporarily sealed by the court and not available. And by the way, he has been a tremendous asset to this team. I'm yet again asking you for your patience and please your understanding while our system of due process works. Also remember that all persons arrested are presumed innocent. All persons arrested are presumed innocent. You all will have an innate desire to subjectively interpret and then report what you think. We in the law enforcement realm cannot, and you should never allow us to, talk about what we think concerning facts, but rather discuss and share at the right time what it is we know. The time will come when additional details can be released. But again, today is not that day. It's about Abby and Libby, their families, and this community, this nation, and even our planet. The prosecutor has been very clear with law enforcement about what his expectations are, about what can and cannot be released, shared, or discussed. So we will, of course, comply. If you choose to be critical of our silence, be critical of me, not the front line. These are the folks that have committed their entire lives to a successful conclusion. In other words, a guilty verdict. As we move to the next phase of this investigation, I will continue to offer all resources that the ISP has to not only the investigative team that I anticipate growing, but also to Prosecutor McClellan as we prepare for the coming months. Again, Nick has been very resolute and very clear, and I'm most grateful for his leadership. And it's going to be really important as we move forward. Please continue offering tips that you would like to share. The many avenues to report will remain open and will be available to all. Please continue doing that. In closing, I stand before you in this church and very place where we held our first briefing nearly 6 years ago, and just hours after the murders of Abby and Libby. Right here. Pulling in today, I wasn't really sure what emotion I would experience. But peace came over me. And I didn't expect that to happen. And I hope all of you, with all the different responsibilities you have from around the planet today, have felt some of that as well. But remember, we're not done. I think what we all have experienced proves that together there's nothing we cannot do. But more importantly, giving of ourselves, all of us, giving of ourselves matters more than what we could ever receive. Abby and Libby, though in death, have had a profound effect on so many of us, on how we live, and as importantly, who we all should be. I would now like to introduce to you my friend and the Carroll County Sheriff, Tom Lidsby, for his remarks. Sheriff.
I believe in a God of justice and righteousness. Today, I believe that same God has provided us with justice for Abby and Libby. As Sheriff of Carroll County, Indiana, I want to publicly and sincerely thank each individual who played a role in helping us during this 5.5-year investigation. Whether it was in an investigative capacity, providing tips, cards or letters of suggestions or encouragement.
I ain't even realized it's been 5 years. Damn. That shit crazy.
Phone calls, and thousands of other countless ways of communicating. I earnestly thank those who prayed for this moment in time. We now move forward through the Indiana criminal justice system, allowing the system to provide its due diligence and process in providing that justice which is owed Abby and Libby, their families, and this community. Thank you.
No, man, that shit fucked up, man. 2 girls can go play in the woods and just end up dead. Shit, where is it safe at in America, man? Your kids can't even go play in the woods without a predator being
Welcome,
out
everybody.
there.
My name
is Nicholas McClellan. I'm the Carroll County prosecutor. And before we get started, I want to reiterate some of the things that Sheriff Lesenby and Superintendent Carter stated. I first want to thank both of them. They've been a great support to my office throughout this investigation. They've always been there for a phone call and always been willing to help a hand or a line of assistance to me and my office during this investigation. I want to thank the team behind me. This is the Homicide Task Force team that we've put together. Thank them and thank their families for being so understanding for the many nights they've worked away from their families, away from their children. There are many dates in a lifetime that you're going to remember. Dates your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy a first house, the date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence to formulate a PC that we submitted to the court, and the judge did find probable cause for an arrest of Richard Allen. He's been charged with 2 counts of murder for the murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. This investigation is still very ongoing. We're keeping the tip line open, the tip email open. We encourage everybody to continue to call in tips, not only about Richard Allen, but about any other person that you may have. For that reason and for the nature of this case, the probable cause and the charging information has been sealed by the court. I've been very clear to everybody that per the court order, we cannot talk about the evidence that's in the probable cause or the evidence that's in the charging information. That will become evident to you at some point and it'll be released, but right now is not that day. Today's about Abby and Libby, focusing on them. Mr. Allen has had his initial hearing. He's entered a preliminary plea of not guilty. The matter has been set for a pretrial on January 13th at 9 a.m., 2023, and a trial date of March 20th, 2023 at 9 a.m. He is presumed innocent. We will have our opportunity and day in court when we can present the evidence that we have against him. But until that day, he is presumed innocent. I want to open up to a few limited questions from the audience. But again, keep in mind, we are not going to talk about the evidence that we have in this case or about the charging information. We cannot. Those things have been sealed by the court.
Bro, all that presumed innocent shit, that shit fake, man. You not presumed innocent. You presume guilty. That's why they charging your ass. You gotta prove your motherfucking innocence to get out that shit. So it's guilty until proven innocent. Like Plies said.
And so I want to open up a few questions.
Prosecutor, when did Richard Allen become a suspect, and do you think he acted alone?
Again, that's part of the investigation, so I'm not going to talk about those things. What I can say is that we have probable cause established by the court for his arrest, and he is in custody. He's being held currently without bond.
How long has he been a suspect?
I'm sorry? Again, that gets into the evidence we have of the investigation, and I know from everybody it's frustrating. I know everybody, not only reporters, but the family, everybody wants to know more information. I understand it's frustrating, but my goal is to maintain the integrity of this case.
Superintendent Carter, you had said that you believe that you had spoken to the suspect or the suspect's family 2 years ago. Is this man one of those people?
Again, I appreciate the question, but we're getting into the timeline of events, and today's not the time to do that.
Can you talk about how rare it is?
Family, and we had a lot of conversations with them. We were almost in tears pretty much when we started off this press conference. Can't imagine how emotional it is for everybody that's looked on this case. What was the conversation first like with the family that when we were able to tell them we finally got the suspect?
It was a very personal moment for me, and I think it was a very personal moment for them, for all of us that have had interaction with the family. We developed a relationship that I think is going to last at least one lifetime, and maybe a second. So it was a very, very, very sad yet a very humbling experience.
Superintendent, you asked for tips. You detective work. There's a reward of $225,000. Did this all come together to make this nexus? Is that the combination of all three things that led us to this day? Or is it one or the other?
Well, eventually you'll be able to see what led us to this day. But again, today's not that day. To include the reward, you mentioned that, Raphael, about the reward itself, and again, very premature for us to talk about that. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do.
say that Abby and Libby have taught you that we can remain to continue on with the norm?
I think probably resilience and understanding the value of each and every day. That today was the day, but I didn't anticipate they ever thought today would be their day. And I feel like I've known them for a long time. Excuse me?
Do you assume there's any other individuals involved in this case?
We haven't closed the door on the investigation. And so that's why we keep the tip line and the tip email open. And so we're not presuming anything at this point, but we're going to continue to take tips, continue to take any information anybody has. And as we've done with all the information we've gathered, we're going to look at that and examine that and see where it leads us.
You've asked the court, based on this investigation, that these documents should remain out of the public view. Can you explain, without getting into the details of what's in the documents, but this is not regular. Usually a public hearing is held. We should be able to see all the documents, right?
Sure.
You made a decision. Can you explain your decision as to why you believe that maybe the next 30 days, no one in this room should have access to those records?
Sure. It is unusual. We don't do it very often in all the cases that we handle here in Carroll County. We did it in this case because the investigation is still open. And while all cases are important, the nature of this case has some extra scrutiny with it. And so my office, felt it was important to seal those records. There will be a public hearing on whether or not those records are going to remain sealed or not. There'll be public notice for that hearing so that everyone can attend, but there will be a hearing to determine whether or not they're going to stay sealed. But for now, to me, it's about protecting the integrity of this case. I want to have an opportunity at some point to have an opportunity in court to explain the evidence and for that not to be tarnished or tainted or anything like that. Again, he's presumed innocent. And so it was important for me in this case to do that. Hold on just a minute. We're not going to comment on that right now as part of the investigation. Again, we just encourage everybody to continue to call in tips if they have them about anybody, and we'll examine those tips. That's a hard question to answer. It's a mixed emotions. I've been watching the news all weekend like everybody else has, and I think a lot of the members of the public said it right. It's bittersweet. It's a step in the right direction. It's concerning that he's a local guy. So I think just different emotions. Again, this is a step in the right direction. This is the first step into getting into court and having a trial. And so...
All right. That concludes our press conference today. Shortly, I will be releasing a press release that will have his photo.
So we're gonna watch this other little clip video to see like they gonna expose some of the evidence of the case. So we're gonna see like what they really got on them. What they got on them that took 5 years for them to get.
A word of warning. This podcast explores to figure out what all of this means is criminal investigator
from releasing it, and the court said no, it's not. There are other witnesses to potentially this individual who's incarcerated.
We now know more about the evidence investigators believe links Richard Allen to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi. Today, the judge ordered a redacted charging document and probable cause affidavit to be released to the public.
The documents include new details about the charges, a bullet found at the scene, new information on the video obtained from Libby's phone, and statements from witnesses about the man on the bridge.
Abby and Libby were found dead near the Monon High Bridge in 2017, and now for the first time, we know why detectives arrested Richard Allen nearly 6 years later.
We have team coverage digging into the documents and the new timeline from the day the teens were killed. Plus, what we still don't know about this investigation that's captured Hoosiers' hearts from the beginning.
And again, tonight, for the very first time, the public and the press can now read those redacted court documents about the Delphi double murder case. The judge overseeing the case ordered them to be unsealed today.
In the probable cause affidavit, the state lays out some of the evidence that led to Richard Allen's arrest. The document shows how a single unspent round from a gun linked him to the murders. Now, Abby and Libby were found dead near the Monon High Bridge in Delphi in 20.
That's all they got though? A shell casing? So what? The same shell casing was the one that was Master Bullet that killed him?
2017, just one day after being dropped off for a hike. The documents do not say how they were killed. The newly released charging document does say, though, that Allen killed Abby and Libby while committing or attempting to commit kidnapping. He's charged with 2 counts of felony murder.
The affidavit says investigators believe Allen is the man we've come to know as the man on the bridge, based on descriptions from witnesses. State police released the picture on the left from Libby's phone a day after the girls were found dead. The evidence outlined in the affidavit includes that bullet, video from a nearby store, and statements from witnesses.
Fox 59's Eric Graves spent the day in Delphi going to those key places that are listed in the court documents.
We start here at Hoosier Harvest Store. It's on County Road 300 North in between the 2 entrances to the Monon High Bridge Trail. Video from this store is mentioned multiple times in the docs. Police say they saw a car resembling Richard Allen's drive past at 1:27 p.m. the day the girls went missing. Now to the Freedom Bridge, part of the Monon High Bridge Trail passing over State Road 25. It's on the opposite end of the trail from the Monon High Bridge and near where court docs say Richard Allen said he parked his car on February 13th, 2017. According to court documents, 3 teenage girls who came forward say they were here near the Freedom Bridge at around 1:30 the day the girls disappeared. They say they saw a man in blue jeans and a blue jacket walk past. They described him as creepy. Richard Allen admitted in a police interview that he was here around the same time in the same area and saw 3 girls himself. Next, we go back down County Road 300 North to the entrance to the Monon High Bridge Trail across from Mears Farm. The documents say the 2 victims, Abby Williams and Libby German, were dropped off here at 1:49 p.m. The 2 girls then start to walk down the trail to the Monon High Bridge. Just 30 minutes later, Abby and Libby were here on the Monon High Bridge, which is currently under construction. This is where they encountered the man on the bridge. At 2:13 p.m., Libby takes the video clip we've all seen where a man tells the girls. Investigators say this man was Richard Allen. Police say his description matches the man other witnesses saw that day. Now we're off the trail on the side of County Road 300 North. A witness says she saw a man in blue jeans and a blue jacket walking on this road just before 4 o'clock. The witness described the man as muddy with blood on his clothes, saying he looked like he'd been in a fight. Investigators say they believe this was Richard Allen walking back to his car after the girls had been killed. In an interview with police, Richard Allen says he walked back down the trail to his car and left around 3:30 that afternoon. Fast forward to the next day, February 14th, 2017. Investigators find Abby and Libby's bodies back into these woods just northeast of the Monon High Bridge Trail. In an area described as less than a quarter mile away from the Monon High Bridge, court docs say between the 2 bodies found an unspent .40 caliber round. Court docs say a lab proved came from Richard Allen's gun. In Delphi, Eric Graves, Fox 59 News.
Eric, thank you. Detectives arrested Allen on October 26. 2 days later, he was charged. The documents relating to Allen's arrest were sealed at the request of the Carroll County prosecutor. That meant we didn't know why Allen was arrested or what evidence the prosecution had. Information that is typically made available publicly in most criminal cases after an arrest. 1 week ago today, Allen appeared in court in Carroll County. That hearing centered around whether the probable cause affidavit should remain sealed. The prosecutor, Nicholas McClelland, argued that it should stay sealed. One of his main arguments was he said he had reason to believe Allen may not be the only one involved in the murders. That was information we hadn't heard before. He also argued that if an unredacted affidavit were released, witnesses could potentially be harassed. Meantime, Allen's defense team said the affidavit should be unsealed. They told us they weren't impressed with the case against their client. They claim he's innocent. Yesterday, Judge Fran Gall ordered a redacted probable cause and charging information to be unsealed, and they were released earlier today. Her order says the state failed to prove by clear and convincing evidence that the affidavit and charging information should be excluded from public access. She writes, the court finds that the public interest is not served by prohibiting access and that the protection and safety of witnesses can be ensured by redacting their names from the affidavit.
And we spoke with a defense attorney who is not connected to this case. Fox 59's Lindsay Eaton shows us why his main takeaways are from these unsealed documents.
Yes, for the past month, this 8-page probable cause affidavit remained sealed until earlier today. Names of the witnesses are the only thing redacted, and the documents leave a lot of questions out there.
In this 8-page probable cause affidavit, some of the evidence is revealed that led police to arrest Richard Allen in connection with the 2017 murders of Abby Williams and Libby German.
Likely when the defense read this, their thoughts were, where's the rest? And that was my initial reaction as well.
JP Roman Lagunas is a defense attorney. He's not associated with the Delphi double murder case, but has read the newly released probable cause.
The amount of information that was included in the probable cause affidavit was less than what I would have expected. That doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't more information. Well, there certainly is more information to come.
A probable cause affidavit isn't required to lay out all the evidence, just enough to file charges and get an arrest warrant.
It lays out essentially the state's case. It's essentially in order to charge a defendant, the judge would need to review this and find that there was, the minimum threshold of probable cause in order to accept those charges and essentially have the charges filed.
We learned from the court documents that police found an unspent bullet between the girls' bodies at the scene. Lab analysis matched the bullet to a gun recovered from Allen's home.
I highly anticipate that the defense will find an expert to look into that and look into how accurate that testing can actually be.
According to court documents, Allen was among those interviewed early on in the investigation. He admitted to police that he was, in fact, on the Monon High Bridge Trail the afternoon the girls were murdered.
Well, I certainly think that this probable cause affidavit leaves quite a bit to wonder. It leaves quite a bit out there.
Now,
all they got is just a bullet, like, that ain't really too much. Like, they don't got no DNA evidence, none of that. It might be hard to get a conviction. But with the popularity of the case, it might be different.
release of the documents, they say, quote, out of respect for the prosecutorial process, which is being led by the Carroll County prosecutor, we are refraining from making any public statements and are going to allow the probable cause affidavit to stand on its own. Indiana State Police says it will continue to provide resources available to assist in the case. Lindsay Eaton, Fox 59 News.
Lindsay, thank you. Allen says he was on the trail the day of the murders, but denies knowing Abby and Libby, as well as denies having any involvement in their murders. Investigators first interviewed him in 2017. He told them he arrived at the trail around 1:30 p.m. on February 13th. He says he saw 3 females, but did not speak with them. Investigators interviewed Allen again this year on October 13th. The affidavit doesn't say why they interviewed him again. It says he told them he was on the trail the day of the murders and he went to the Monon High Bridge to watch fish. He told investigators he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. That day, investigators executed a search warrant of Allen's home, and that's where they found jackets, boots, knives, and firearms. Between October 14th and 19th, the Indiana State Police Laboratory performed an analysis on Allen's Sig Sauer model P226. You're looking at a gun just like this now. The lab's analysis determined the unspent round found near the bodies had been cycled through Allen's gun. Investigators spoke to Allen again on October 26th, the day he was arrested. He told them he never allowed anyone to use or borrow the gun. Investigators asked him about the unspent bullet, and the affidavit says he did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found at the scene. He admitted to being on the trail, but again, denied knowing the girls and denied involvement in their murders. Now, based on these court documents, part of the state's case relies on that single unfired bullet to put Allen at the scene, though again, we don't know from those documents how the girls were killed.
But investigators did link Allen to the case by examining that one unfired round. Fox 59 Chief Investigator Steve Brown explains some of the science that may have been involved in that analysis.
The probable cause affidavit for Richard Allen says the Indiana State Police Laboratory determined the unspent round has been cycled through Richard Allen's Sig Sauer P226. This is what the handgun looks like. Retired IMPD Detective Sergeant Greg Arkins tells us when a round or shell casing is ejected from a firearm, that leaves distinct marks, even if it isn't fired.
Whenever a person unloads a gun that's loaded with a round in the chamber, then when you pull back onto the slide, the extractor grabs a hold, and the extractor is made of hard metal, where the shell casing is made of slightly softer metal, so it leaves very unique microscopic striations on the shell casing.
The term striation, those are marks, scratches?
Correct. It's a sometimes microscopic, but it's, the mark that an extractor will make.
How reliable is this information, that ejection information from a gun?
I'm not a firearms examiner, but from my experience, I found it's like 98, 99%.
Steve Brown, Fox 59 News.
Steve, thank you. 3 pieces of evidence that were released in February 2017 were a picture, this video, and audio from Libby's phone. The affidavit shares more information about that as well. Abby and Libby were dropped off for that hike 1:49 p.m. that day, February 13th. Video from Libby's phone shows they encountered a man on the Monon High Bridge at 2:13 p.m. State police released part of the video in the weeks after the murders to try and gather tips on the man's identity. According to the affidavit, the video shows the man approaching Abby and Libby. One of the girls mentions a gun as that happens. The affidavit goes on to say the man ordered Abby and Libby down the hill. That's the audio clip that state police released, which we've played for you many times here through the years. The affidavit says after that, no witnesses saw Abby or Libby, and no outgoing communications were found on Libby's phone. Abby and Libby were both found dead the next day.
And while we have learned more about the state's case from these documents, there are still many unanswered questions. It doesn't go into how Abby and Libby were killed or what the murder weapon was.
It also doesn't mention if anyone else is accused of being involved at this point. The county prosecutor said in court last week there was reason to believe others could be involved, and that was an argument they laid out for trying to keep those documents sealed. Those documents don't mention any other potential suspects. They also don't talk about the social media account that investigators had said was believed to be tied to this case. Transcripts released this year reveal someone behind that account was supposed to meet the girls on the trail the day they were killed. Police traced that profile to a man named Kagan Klein. He is not mentioned in the documents either. In August of 2020, he was charged in connection to a child porn case and is currently in custody. He's never been charged or named as a suspect in these murders. Klein says it's also possible his father had access to that account, but neither man has been charged in the Delphi case, and it's not clear from the documents released today if or how that account is connected to the arrest made in the murders.
And there was another big filing in the Delphi case before the release of those documents. Allen's defense team is requesting a change of venue. They want the trial moved 150 miles away from Carroll County. That would only leave a small portion in southwestern Indiana. Fox 59's Max Lewis shows us why they're making this request.
The defense cited intense media coverage of this case as one of the reasons to ship the trial elsewhere. However, one former prosecutor who has handled several change of venue cases says this case's impact on that small community is the biggest reason to move it.
It's hard to live in Carroll County and not know the name Richard Allen. In fact, his defense team cited Google data that shows around half of the county residents Googled his name in the month after his arrest.
The issue is not has somebody heard of the case. The issue is whether they've heard of the case sufficient to have formed an opinion with respect to this defendant's guilt or innocence.
Former Marion County homicide prosecutor Denise Robinson believes that's where having the trial in Carroll County would be hard. The defense team cited data that shows about 10% of the county's population participated in the search for the girls when they went missing, and there are other connections to consider.
You have two different girls' families. Then you have investigating officers, police officers. You have EMS personnel who responded, all of whom live in that county and have family in that county. Now you're starting to eat up into the county population pretty quickly.
The defense team said it would be impossible to select a jury in Carroll County that has no preconceived notions, but Robinson doesn't believe they need to go excessively far. She says escaping connection to the community is much more important than worrying about media coverage.
I mean, you could probably bring a case from Carroll County to Marion County, which isn't that far in distance, and have quite a few people in Marion County that simply don't watch the news, that know virtually nothing about the case.
Robinson tried to change a venue case before Judge Gall in 2016 and says the judge knows what she's doing. While there may be arguments, she says it's in everyone's best interest to avoid anything that could get a case thrown out.
I don't know if too many prosecutors that want to try the case get a conviction and then have to try the case again.
Now, there's a couple ways this could happen if the judge grants the motion. They could pick up the trial and move it to a different county, or they could bring in a jury that was selected from a different county and still hold the trial in Carroll County. Robinson says moving the entire trial is less of a hassle and less costly, but it will, of course, be up to the judge to decide. In the newsroom, I'm Max Lewis, Fox 59 News.
Max, thank you. The next hearing in this case is scheduled for February 17th. It's a bail hearing, which Allen's attorneys requested just last week. In that filing, they argue there is no proof of guilt evident or presumption of guilt against their client. They say Allen should be freed on a reasonable bail or released on his own recognizance. That would mean he wouldn't have to post bail as long as he agrees to appear in court when required. At the hearing in February, the judge will decide whether to set bail. We also know last Tuesday, the prosecutor filed a request for a gag order.
Yeah, this would mean anyone involved in the case would legally not be allowed to speak publicly about the evidence, the investigation, or the trial. The judge has not yet ruled on that gag order. Right now.
Man, this shit fucked up, man. This grown ass nigga, man. Grown ass man. I don't be getting why shit be going on, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, what was his whole, like, I just don't get it. Like, people just be weird, bro. Like, people just, I don't know, like, was he just like a child predator or something? He just wanted to kill some kids? What was his intentions? I guess we won't know until the case, till the trial start. But shit fucked up, man. So like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit, man.